A warm welcome. I'm glad you tuned in again. Lars is here with me again, or still here. Lars from Raw Energy. He has his own really big and great YouTube channel. Please subscribe. That's very important. That would be great. And we always appreciate a thumbs up, whether it's on his channel or mine. And of course, if you write lots of comments below, because the exchange between you and the community is something we find really, really important. Great, yes. So today we're talking about B12, vitamin B12. Oh my, that's really important for our brain.
Exactly. And that's also the troublesome topic for me. Everyone says vegans lack B12, but it's not just vegans who lack B12.
Exactly. That's really, really important. That's why we're covering this topic for vegans and non-vegans, and for everyone who might be thinking after watching this video, oops, maybe they meant me. So B12 is a really, really important vitamin. By the way, the problem is that many vitamin deficiencies are only detected in the blood when the level in the body is already extremely low. So it's assumed that only when you have maybe 60 or 50% of what you should have, the deficiency actually shows up in the blood. So you shouldn't forget that either. Honestly, when I think about how often I see a B12 deficiency in my patients who aren't even vegans, because a lot of people come here who want to know what they can do and how they can become vegan. When I do the blood test beforehand to see if they're already missing anything, because the likelihood that they're missing a lot of things is much higher if they're omnivores, meaning if they eat a mixed diet, than it is for vegans. By the way, I often see this in people who are usually a bit older and who also take a lot of medication. That they have a severe vitamin B12 deficiency, they have no idea. They don't know it at all, but they have a lot of symptoms, which is why they come to us. I'm sure that B12 deficiency is very widespread here in the entire German community. The crazy thing is that very few people know, and everyone thinks it's only the vegans, the poor ones, who don't get enough of it. But that's just wrong. Very important symptoms that I just want to list for you now, which appear with a B12 deficiency, are depressive disorders, anxiety disorders, sleep disorders, concentration disorders, memory loss. So basically everything that also points to dementia. All of this is related to a vitamin B12 deficiency. I think also these bipolar disorders, which are becoming more and more common, but also burnout, these states of exhaustion. These are all possible symptoms to show the body, hey, I'm lacking B12. And what's really important is that many medications actually prevent the absorption of B12. A very, very important medication that many people who are a bit older take are stomach acid blockers.
Exactly.
Proton pump inhibitors.
Exactly. And above all, it's often taken by people who are already on a lot of medications, and so they don't feel sick.
So that the stomach keeps working well. So actually, as soon as you get a medication, you also get a stomach acid blocker with it.
My neighbors told me that.
Completely absurd.
I immediately said, please take B12 right away. What is that?
No one knew that, so it's truly a major catastrophe. In the stomach, a so-called intrinsic factor is actually produced if the stomach is healthy. The intrinsic factor then binds to the B12, and this intrinsic factor then carries the B12 into the body. If we have the intrinsic factor again, because we've taken a proton pump inhibitor, that's what proton pump inhibitors are called, then we produce this stomach factor. The B12 transport mechanism is no longer available, and then the person affected has a B12 deficiency, and that's something you really need to think about. A huge number of people take this medication. It's one of the best-selling medications alongside statins, which are cholesterol-lowering drugs. By the way, there are other medications that also interact with B12. That's a vitamin that an incredible number of people are lacking. And by the way, the normal levels of B12, they say you should have up to 300. So from 300 picograms per milliliter, I think that's what the unit is called. Is that okay? But it has been observed that especially people who suffer from or have developed such neurological disorders actually need much more. They actually need a level of 500 to 600 picograms, possibly even higher than 600 picograms per milliliter. So you really have to pay attention to that. Make sure that you're not just hovering around the lower limit and saying, okay, we still have enough B12, because that's not really the case. I can just tell you B12 is a vitamin that in my lab tests that I do with my patients very often shows up as a deficiency. And that's why I'm so insistent that people supplement it. Especially for people who are multimorbid, meaning they have several illnesses or are already sick and taking medication, you should definitely keep that in mind. Have it checked, specifically in the form of holotranscobalamin. That's the value you should have your doctor check to know if you have enough active vitamin B12. Regarding vegans, they should of course take it as well. If you, for example, switch overnight, please don't just sit back and say, oh, but I heard. For years, B12 is available in our body because it has such an immense storage capacity in the liver. That's simply not true.
No, that's not my experience.
That's not true at all. After just weeks and a few months, this B12 is depleted. That's why my patients regularly, at the latest after the second time, once they've switched and once I have the lab results, are prescribed B12. It should definitely be 500 micrograms. That makes a lot of sense. Ideally, a combination preparation as well, so not just one form, but maybe two forms, simply so that these people, those living vegan, are sufficiently supplied. So I take it too because I just don't want to end up in such a deficit, because it's just really terrible how you feel when that happens. Because I have people here and they're also not productive, they're not creative anymore, they're just living, they don't enjoy participating in life anymore. So what happens there is just not good. That's generally the case whenever you have a deficiency in micronutrients. That's just pretty bad because nothing in your body really works the way it should anymore.
No, I have a very important warning for everyone who has had surgery or is going to have surgery soon. I don't know if you know this. During anesthesia, the B12 storage is completely depleted. I have a story. My older son, had to have surgery 2 years ago, and after that, he totally crashed in school. He was missing parts of his memory and couldn't recall vocabulary from the 2 weeks before surgery. It was like it had been erased, and then we thought about it for a long time and looked into it. We got him back to top grades with high doses of B12. For weeks, he failed vocabulary tests and couldn't learn anything. He was completely drained. The usual stuff just wasn't enough anymore.
That's a good point. It just doesn't work, not only with B12, but with other vitamins too. And Q10 is also a huge topic. If you're having surgery, take high doses of Q10 beforehand. That's also important because it improves healing. Vitamin D3 is also involved, which is clear. So these three vitamins are, by the way, the ones that most often show up as deficiencies in my patients. I find that really interesting too. Well, there are also some minerals, but when it comes to vitamins, it's really B12, Q10, and D3 that are most common. Exactly.
My other son, he's always incredibly active in his daily life. He's always on the go, and he really needs a high B12 level because otherwise he can't concentrate well on his homework. It's really true. Now, when he's sitting there, I can't do this. I can't do this. Then I give him a chewable tablet or something like that twice, and the next day everything is fine again. And he often slips into a deficiency state because of his metabolism.
But it's clear, these concentration problems are just like that. Also, with these children who have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, this attention deficit syndrome. Not Ritalin, so not a psychotropic drug, but really first check B12, Q10, and D3 because that's really what they are usually lacking. With that, they can concentrate much better again and also come back to themselves.
Yes, exactly.
I can really relate to the example with your son, but that just gets forgotten. These symptoms are so common, and then they're treated with psychotropic drugs, and that's not necessary at all because these psychotropic drugs, they all have side effects. Such micronutrient supplements have no side effects. They only have effects, and they help restore normal metabolism. By the way, about B12. What also comes to mind is that there is even a toothpaste with B12 in it. I think that's good too. Many of my patients have that and use it too. I always monitor these B12 levels and I always want them to be relatively high. And that really works excellently.
Good, okay.
So we know it's likely absorbed not just in the stomach, but also through the oral mucosa. But there's pretty much no research on that because unfortunately, B12 doesn't bring much money into the coffers of the pharmaceutical industry. No, not at all. That's why there's no research being done on it. But those are just experiences. And I mean, hello, if I've been experiencing this for such a long time and seeing that it's true, then you can definitely take something from that. Definitely, that's why.
In professional sports, it's also the case that everyone injects high doses of B12 so that the athletes never fall into a performance slump. Because they're always pushing themselves to the limit of what's possible. Absolutely.
Yes. And also when I think about what a normal recommendation is from the German Nutrition Society for B12, it makes me really anxious. Yes, that's really, I think 3 micrograms a day or something like that. That just can't be right. So we know for sure 500 should be the base. Sometimes, depending on the person, you can take 1,000. And that's also what you should do because it doesn't hurt. It's a water-soluble vitamin. And it will simply be excreted if there's too much, or it will be used for storage at first, and then once the stores are full. The rest is just excreted. That's it.
Exactly. Then it's just expensive urine if you take too much of it, but it doesn't do any harm.
Yes, but I think...
Yes, it's free, but it's pricier than regular urine?
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
But exactly. And that's why I think have your levels checked if you have a doctor who's willing to do it. There are also test kits for many vitamins that you can order online. You simply take capillary blood from your fingertip and then you have it at home. Even if your doctor refuses, which sadly happens often. I hear that a lot.
Again and again, yes.
B12 is not measured, Q10 is not measured, and even vitamin D is still not adequately monitored, which I really can't understand at all. But those are really, really essential micronutrients that you should definitely have enough of in your body. And that's why B12 is considered brain doping again? Yes, so you need that to function here. It's really important. There's also the discussion that a healthy gut, if it has the right gut bacteria and with a wholesome plant-based diet, might actually be able to settle in and produce the vitamin B12 that we humans need right there in the gut. But there's no research on that either. I think that at some point it will be proven that we can produce it ourselves if we have a healthy gut flora. But honestly, most people are still very, very, very far from that.
We also don't eat like cows anymore. Well, cows don't either. But that freshly grazed grass from the meadow with all the microorganisms and everything.
I just remembered something about B12. You should know. So in factory farming, it's not like the animals just naturally produce B12 themselves because they're grazing in the meadow and can produce enough B12 in their fourth stomach because there are many bacteria there. No, they get it through supplements mixed into their feed so that they have enough, and then the supplement comes from the cows. Does it then go back into your food when you eat the meat? So getting natural B12 through your diet, unfortunately, hasn't been the case for a long time. So at least with products from factory farming and even with organic farming, not everything is as nice as it should be. So you can definitely do without animals, but then you absolutely have to supplement B12. But even if you're maybe in your early to mid 40s, it can't hurt you if you supplement it. That's why I'm also someone who says we really just need a micronutrient supplement, a basic one. And then in addition, exactly the 3 substances I've always mentioned, B12, D3, and Q10. And then you're really well taken care of. That's just super important. And you know who else says that? Walter Willett. He's basically the nutrition guy of our time. He teaches and works at Harvard University, and he's also in charge of the School of Public Health there, and he wrote a book as well. And there, for example, he says that basically everyone should take a multivitamin supplement and calls it the cheapest insurance for health insurance in general. And he recommends it. And I find that really fascinating because Walter Willett is someone who says that a whole food, plant-based diet is the best, just like we do.
Exactly. Great.
Okay, Lars, thank you for being here and for asking me questions again. You're very welcome. Yes, I'm glad you joined us. We appreciate subscribers. Subscribe, give us a thumbs up, leave lots of comments, and see you next time. I wish you all good health. Bye-bye.